What if I told you there is a Souls-like, roguelite, first-person shooter that lets you pop heads, fight flying ghost ships, and explore an island filled with traps, enemies, and treasures guarded by an evil witch? What if I then told you this game's combat is on par with Destiny and other top-tier PvE shooters? What if I then told you this is one of the most impressive early access titles I've ever played, as a man that's no-lifed gaming for 20 plus years? Well, if that doesn't get you at least a little fired up in the loins, I don't know what will. Witchfire is all these things, but does come with a caveat. It's still early in development, and I'd say only 25% of its full release content is currently available. In this video, I'll break down Witchfire's promising game systems, combat, enemy variety, general gameplay loop, and dive into whether it's worth your time now, or if you should wait for the full release. Thanks for checking out this video. If you enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe for more Witchfire content, and come find me in the comments, or streaming live Tuesdays and Thursdays here on YouTube and Twitch. So let's set the scene. Witchfire describes itself as a dark fantasy first-person shooter roguelite, and a roguelite for people who don't like roguelites. If you're not familiar with the term, it essentially boils down to running a map, getting out with some materials that will allow you to upgrade your character to make the next run easier. Over time, you'll play harder maps, or the difficulty will increase, but so will the powers at your disposal to match. To keep it fresh, Witchfire's maps randomize enemy placement, variety, mission types, threats, and loot on each entry. But why are you running maps to fight these endless hordes? Because you're the Pope's special boy, and that witch isn't going to kill itself. After all, that'd be a sin. Overall, the game's current narrative is still being fleshed out, but the base story is the church is in a war with witches, an artifact has been lost on this island, and you've been sent to retrieve it as one of the church's predators. Wait, no, that's real life. One of the church's witch hunters, called prayers. Much less threatening. Prayers are unkillable beings, fueled by witchfire. This is where the Soulsborne comparison comes in. Enemies you kill give you witchfire. Dying drops all your current unspent witchfire, which can be retrieved in your next run by getting to the location you died. You use witchfire to level up, which comes at an increasing cost. Witchfire can also be used as a currency, but you're unlikely to find that too useful until you're getting to the end game. Or the end early game? The end of early access. But how do we go about separating these fuckos from their witchfire? By popping heads, freezing, burning, and shocking them into the dirt. This is where the game absolutely shines. The combat is brutal and unforgiving, but I never felt like I was being cheesed. Each time I took damage, I knew I'd positioned poorly, or missed time to dodge, which, for a first-person shooter, is a hard line to tread, but this studio is nailing it. First-person shooters often boil down to popping in and out of cover while taking measured shots, and this is still the case in Witchfire. But the enemy variety progresses to keep this fresh, and at times, I honestly felt like I was playing a Souls game. I'd come across a new enemy, warily start to take shots as I strafed around it, to suddenly be hit by a move I'd never seen before. It really gives you that trial and error Souls game are known for, learning enemy attack patterns over time. My only concern with this is that at times while shooting, it can be a little hard to see enemy attacks winding up with your gun effects bouncing around, especially with these mortar or handgunners. But honestly, I needed to learn to stand back and take them down with a slower approach, so it was still on me. Witchfire mixes in spellcasting, varying weapon styles, and arcane buffs that alter the way you play, and help keep runs fresh. You can focus in on spellcasting to augment your weapons, heavily focus in on your gunplay, which you can spec into short or long range, with both having advantages or disadvantages based on the enemies. Something I came to love about Witchfire was that no matter the map, the situation, or my loadout, I needed to be ready for anything. The combat in this game feels very similar to Destiny. You have two spells, one light, which is instant cast, and one heavy, which requires a small wind-up. You have a buffed melee strike, and you can double jump and dodge. Guns feel punchy, spells feel impactful. When it's going your way, combat feels like a well-orchestrated dance. You're notified when an enemy is winding up a shot at you from off-screen, and this works so incredibly well. It's really satisfying to be fighting an enemy, see a notification on the side of your screen, dodge away, and then take them both out with critical strikes. But when you step out of line, it feels like you're the one guy in the room with no rhythm. But you know it's because you dropped the ball, not because the game was unfair. I really can't stress enough how well the combat flows in this game. And again, like any good Souls-like, your success comes down to knowing enemy attack patterns, timing your dodges, and timing your shots. I've been waiting for a shooter to nail the Souls-like combat style, and I was beginning to think it was impossible. Sure, we have Remnant, but I always found it so-so. This game right here, this will be hailed as one of the great Souls-likes on full release, mark my words. I've only really scratched the surface, and this game is only showing the tip of its iceberg. The developers have stated that currently we have 22 enemy types in the game. Their intention is to double this. We only have a small assortment of weapons available now. It'll be tripled. Same with items, spells, and bosses. There are only 2 bosses available for the time being, but on full release, there'll be around 6 or 7. What has me gushing over this game is that it might be the most polished early access experience I've ever played. Everything feels tight, the world looks incredible, and performance was smooth the whole time. Enemies are fluid in their movement, they flank, they have a decent level of intelligence, and the game systems work so well together. Within maps, you're doing more than just killing. The maps have puzzles that require a good amount of trial and error, locations locked until higher difficulties, and mysteries that only become known as you level your Gnosis level. Some of the mysteries on the map don't hold your hand. There is one small task to return this man's head. I tried this quest I think 4 times before learning how to complete it. At first I thought it was a timed quest and bugged. Then I tried again and the same thing. Eventually I realized that the head becomes unstable as you move, requiring you to take short bursts back to the body while fighting off enemies. This really presented a challenge as I needed to take accurate shots while staying out of enemy sightlines while the head was unstable. Overall, in its current state, I finished the game in about 10 hours. In fairness, if I want to explore the harder difficulty, additional enemies, upgrade all items, and explore all map features, I could probably get another 5 to 10 out of it, and that's assuming I want to stop there. So how does the game keep it fresh? As you level up, you'll want to level up your Gnosis level to unlock the next map, the bosses, and other goodies. This introduces new enemy types, new challenges within your map, and increases your ability to level and progress your weapons. That's right, it's not just up to your character that gets stronger over time. Your weapons, rings, items in general all level up as you use them. This starting weapon was a normal machine gun. At level 1, it unlocked a heat mechanic. When in the heated zone, it would deal more damage, but less when overheated. At its second level, it now dealt burning damage to enemies when shot while overheated. Burn damage in this game increases all damage an enemy takes, while also doing some passive damage. And at level 3, this gun now fast reloads when overheated, leading again to that great rhythm I mentioned earlier. Sliding into combat, shooting until overheated, throwing on some slight burn, getting in a quick reload, and finishing off everything around you. This next gun over time lets you ricochet bullets between marked enemies. And this is just the beginning. There are revolvers for you Western style fans that get stronger with each headshot, snipers for those wanting a longer range. There is some great depth and the weapons all felt unique in style and had different benefits based on the situation. I was so eager to upgrade each weapon to find out what the next upgrade was going to be. Spells augment your playstyle further, letting you burn enemies, freeze them to keep distance, and your heavy spells can summon a giant church bell to stun enemies in the area, or an iron cross to hold them in place, and even a burning stake to show the witch what's coming her way. And that is just a taste. Within each match, as you clear locations, you'll be given different arcana, giving you more health or stamina, damage or potion slots, or augmenting your style based on the type of elemental damage you have. It's buffs you get for clearing certain positions. Now, this can have downsides if you get a buff that does nothing for you, with limited options. But when it comes together, it again builds into that insane symphony of combat, and over time you can unlock more and more of these options through research. Outside of the maps, you upgrade your character, research those new arcana, new guns to unlock them, increase the difficulty when you're ready, and have reached the required milestones, and there's even more hidden away. Now, I don't want to spoil all the game has to offer here, but I should mention its Calamity system. As you take damage, make mistakes, and get weaker, the witch will notice and can send a calamity your way, a curse tasked with taking you the fuck out. These are built to be brutal, and failing to address it will lead to your death very quickly. They vary from a static location on the map you need to get to and clear out, phantoms spawning around you needing to be dodged and taken down, to a massive flying galleon released in their most recent update. I mention this system specifically because prior to the Galleon update, it was much more brutal. You weren't warned of its coming arrival, and it could be a real kick in the balls. But the devs listened to player feedback, implemented a widget to tell you how close you are to triggering a calamity, so you can decide to continue on for more glory, or leave with your spoils to come back stronger. It's really good foreshadowing if I'm 1 mark away from a calamity, but about to take on a significant challenge like a mini-boss within the map. It's my choice, as a simple misstep could cause a calamity mid-fight, which is absolutely no fun if it's just sprung on you. Having that occur without notice is not good design, but they altered it, which has improved the system dramatically. These are the same devs behind the critically acclaimed Vanishing of Ethan Carter. They're a small 12-man studio, and they appear committed to making this game the best it can be. It's only available at the moment on the Epic Store, but will come to Steam closer or at full release. They've stated their early access period is being used to get community feedback, to help improve game systems, and of course, do the usual bug catching. I'm a big fan of early access when it's used correctly. Too many games release into early access in an abysmal state, if not at full release. I said it earlier, and I'll highlight again, this game has released in a very polished position, which tells me they are heavily focused on game system improvement. They're not using you as a bug tester. I wonder if it was an intentional choice to release on the Epic Store to limit the initial early access population. If this had released on Steam, I imagine it would have blown up already, but it would have been premature. This game is incredible, but it's not yet reached its true potential. I'm both thrilled by what I've played and disappointed I don't have more to sink my teeth into. Now, they're expecting to be in early access for about 12 months, likely aiming to release at the end of 2024, early 2025, and have stated they aim for regular content updates every couple of months, which they haven't achieved so far from what I can see, with Galleon being their first main update since entering early access in September 2023. I hope they take their time with this and don't rush it out. It's already in a great space. The skeleton, hell, the muscles and major organs are there for this game. It just needs to be fleshed out. Was that too far with that metaphor? You get the idea. Now, despite me praising this, I wouldn't recommend purchasing the game right now. It's sitting at about 55 Australian dollars and I'm in love with it, but I don't think I'd be telling you to go get it. But you should keep an eye out for this game. You should wishlist it and wait for full release or until there is a couple more major content patches. Currently, the game only has 2 maps and 2 bosses. The maps are referred to as large by the developer in some of their material. I'd struggle to call them large, and if they think they are, I worry about their plan to release smaller maps in the future if they have any. I think the map sizes are fine. They're densely packed and exactly what I'd want for a game like this, but you can run from one side to the other in only a couple of minutes. But in that couple of minutes, you'd be running past hordes of enemies and mysteries to uncover. The bosses in the game are a really good start. I'm excited to see what they can do with them over time. I managed to kill both on my first attempt, but only barely. Seriously, the first boss, I ran out of ammo and had to circle strafe around, melee hitting him, and it was insanely clutch. The movement is so fluid, and the stamina management really reminded me of Dark Souls. You'll be fighting, and suddenly run out, and you're doomed. Just like standing in front of Smo and Ornstein, if you run out of stamina and an enemy is charging, you're in deep shit. As you increase in difficulty, higher tier enemies will become more common, using their own spells and more varied weapon attacks, and have more than just 1 or 2 combat options. Your early enemies boil down to, I'm going to charge at you, or I'm going to shoot at you. Enemies as you get further in start shooting mortars from very long range, shooting a grenade launcher style shotgun, and heal when they get low with a bubble shield to protect them, or throw out flashbangs. The game has a great sense of progression currently. Each Gnosis level felt like a significant step up, but I appreciated that it was my choice to increase this when I felt ready to. I would learn all the current enemies, and then get slaughtered on leveling the difficulty with new enemies in the mix. This is very Soulsy, and you're learning new attack patterns each time, but you are incentivized to level the difficulty, as you can only progress so far without doing it. Similarly, you'll need to level at certain points to be able to continue upgrading your equipment. The progression felt amazing. Even on a failure, I was keen to see how my research had progressed, possibly giving me more weapons, spells, or arcana options for a future run, and having the option to return to grab any leftover Witchfire I left behind. I could see this game being on par with Hades for roguelike enjoyers. I could see it sitting among the more popular Souls-like titles, and its combat already feels like something akin to Destiny, top tier in PvE feel. There is a high level of polish on these systems already in place, and the developer is active in their Discord and addressing player feedback. Watch this game. If you want to buy it, you can find it on the Epic Store. I'd recommend holding off as it does feel content light in its current state. But if you want to support them, you know how, and it's an enjoyable experience at the moment. But I think it will be best enjoyed on full release. As right now, I feel like I've had my entree, I'm dying for the main course, but I'll be waiting another 12 months for it. If you want to help me out, you already know how. Like, comment, sub for more, catch me down below. I'm honestly blown away. This is everything I've wanted in a Souls-like shooter, and it's blown my expectations out of the water. With plans for a total of 6 maps, I could see this game really holding my attention for a long time. I could see runs having great amount of replayability, and the community coming up with wild and wacky builds. There is so much room for skill expression in this game, and a variety of playstyles. What do you think of Witchfire? If you've played it or if you haven't? Are you looking forward to it? What are you excited for here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Catch me down there to talk all things Witchfire, and I'll see you around. Cheers.